guests to understand this a little deeper. Dr. Seema Tiwari joins us from P-Value Analytics. She's with us this morning to give us deeper breakdowns around all of this data. Dr. Seema, good morning. Thank you for joining us here on the show. Once again, you joined us on Friday first to provide us with insight into this data. Dr. Seema, this data in particular is so interesting because it ties into this question of technology. And whether or not technology actually helps improve human society, the dangers it can pose. That's a topic we take a look at a lot on the Breakfast Club. We thought it was important to highlight this data in particular. Dr. Seema, tell us first, if we just start off with how safe do you feel on social media? And the fact that these numbers are so far beyond what we looked at on Friday. On Friday, it was quite a positive picture. Today, we're seeing, when it comes to just that big question of safety, you know, earlier when that big question of safety in terms of Indian cities, how safe do you feel, it was 80% plus. Here we're seeing 46%. Less than half of women are saying they feel safe online. Horrible numbers. Dr. Seema, you're someone who conducted the research. Obviously, you oversaw the research efforts. Tell us about some of the answers you got in this section when you were asking women.
So first, good morning, Toya. And yes, you highlighted a very pertinent issue that if we compare the online safety with the safety in the other domains such as neighborhood or transportation, the numbers are much lower. However, I would not completely paint this as a horrible picture. The larger set of women have said that they feel online safe, so more or less, it is predominantly safer feeling of interactions on the online platforms. But at the same time, I would like to emphasize on the fact that neutral, feeling neutral in the online interactions and feeling highly unsafe is an area that is concerning. And the kind of questions and the answers which we have received from the respondents, many are very skeptical about the online interactions. They do not even try going online for the reason that they are unsure. So this highlights towards the poor communication gap that is existing as far as the online interactions are concerned, because anyone who is interacting online and if something happens, they are not sure. There is a ambiguity, there is uncertainty that what will be the consequences, and if something goes wrong, what actions will be taken. So these are the reasons which is making women skeptical about the online interactions, and that is holding them back.
Ask you, Dr. Seema, to shed a little light on the demographics here. So we were telling our audiences 20 cities across 20 states. And we know that this research was not conducted in a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 manner. That's not how these cities were chosen. But just to give us an understanding of how digital friendly these cities might be, how many were rural, how many were metropolitan, so we can better understand this data. Because this is stark data. You know, 46% saying that they think enough is being done. You know, that's less than half once again. So just tell our audiences a little bit more about the data set, the sample size here.
So the sample size here, if we particularly talk about the online safety, it was more than 5,500 women, because of the length of the questionnaire, it was asked in a way that it is applicable to the women who are receiving it. Not everyone was asked this question, but still a set of 5,500 is a significant number. And this question was asked to the women who were belonging to the urban setups, urban cities only. This entire survey is done with the urban women only. It is not done with the rural. And as far as demographics are concerned, any woman who is above 18 is a part of this study. So this is the demography at large. We are still doing analysis, and these are the early findings that we have shared with you so far. And the nuanced analysis and the nuanced data we will come up later, and we will be very happy to share that with you.
Okay, so Dr. Seema, we'll come back to you in just a second. We're also joined right now by Varija Bajaj. She's a fashion designer. She's actually someone we've had on the show before. Varija, we loved your thoughts around the issues when we'd got you on before, and today we thought we'd come to you on a number of aspects here. You are, of course, a fashion designer. You're someone who, is very, very familiar with the complications when it comes to running the back end of a portal, when it comes to purchasing, for example. And we'll come to that in a second. But Varija, first, if we could just ask you broadly, we just want to tell you. So on Friday, we conducted the first part of the survey. And when we'd conducted that, the data had been a very, very different picture. It had been frankly quite a positive picture in a lot of areas. 80% plus women saying they do feel safe. That number dropped when we said, okay, how safe do you feel in the night? Then there was a big drop. But largely in most areas, women said they do feel safe. But today, when we're taking a look at the online, the internet, the digital space, a new space in which Indian women, we spend hours online. You have only 46% saying they feel safe. Varija, first, we just wanted your personal reaction to this. Do you agree? Do you resonate? Do your friends, family, the women you speak to around you, do they resonate? And do you see a difference in how safe younger girls versus older women feel online? Tell us about your thoughts.
We are living in the world of social dilemma where we do not know whether we want to be online or whether we can get away with it. Honestly, we cannot. Look at the India numbers. We have 500 million YouTube users today. We have about 600 million WhatsApp users. We have 380 million Instagram users. We have 140 LinkedIn users, close to about that number. We cannot get away, by not being on the online platform, because today if somebody was to know you, if you were to pitch for business, the first thing they would do is they would go and check your LinkedIn profile. Now, having said that, we are dealing with a lot of data. And when I say that the women, or when your survey says that a lot of women feel safe out there because they don't even know where their data is floating. Today we are using Truecaller because your data of your number or your contact number is floating with the banks, it's floating with the real estate companies, it's floating with the credit card companies. Right now, as long as it works. But no, we are dealing with, closer ground. Let's talk Delhi. If I were to talk about physical space, today, if I go to a restaurant, I'm not given a physical menu card. I'm asked to scan a QR code. Now, that's data for me. I get irked by sharing my contact details there. If I go to a lifestyle, now this is a national brand, and I can say that loud and clear because every time I go there and I shop, they insist that I give my contact details, else they will not give me a bill, and they will not return if anything is damaged within their 15-day return policy. And if I do not give that, I'm not eligible for it. If I go to a salon, let's say a salon like Lux, they would not give me a printed bill if I do not give them my contact details. Now, that is no more a choice. You have to give your contact details. Though I think it is quite against the legalities of it, whether you are supposed to share or not. But who's going to argue? Everybody doesn't know what falls within the sphere of... But, I run these two brands which are in the e-commerce space. And both these brands, we deal with a lot of fake orders. So there is no choice but to take, if you do not have a mobile number and if you do not get an OTP, you cannot place an order on my platform. And so is Myntra and so is Amazon and, all of that. Because we get a lot of fake orders, internet is and online shopping is a relatively new space, and everybody's toying with it, having fun at the cost of brands like ours. So it becomes imperative, but I think it comes with a lot of social responsibility that we keep that data intact. But I also know of brands and I also know of organizations that buy data, consumer data, relevant consumer data, to be able to pitch that to the Meta ads or the Google ads that they're targeting. So I think we're living in a very strange times where you want to be selectively visible, and you want to be followed or connected by the right kind of people. But no, when you're out there, I always tell my students, when I'm teaching in colleges, that you just can't post anything on social media. It's also about your personal branding. Everybody's watching you. Your recruiters are watching you. Your competition is watching you. Media is watching you. If anything is on your phone, even if you've not posted it, you shared your data with the iPhone and the Samsungs or the Android. Of course, and there's a whole new fight out there, between what's going on in US with regards to the data being used and the permissions being given. So yes, we are living in very strange times where you can't do with it, you can't do without it.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Varja, if we could ask you, earlier we asked if you've seen a difference in the reaction that you get from younger women versus older women when it comes to online safety. So are younger girls feeling safer and maybe falsely so? Is that possible? What do you see in the women around you?
Yeah, because we're dealing with plastic currency, we're dealing with the UPI payments. If you see the older generation, they're still not comfortable with the credit cards. They're not comfortable doing. My mom, she does not have a net banking for the simple reason: what if she presses a wrong button and her entire money just gets transferred? That's how it has been, and she's been grown up with all that news that she's been hearing about online frauds. But if I were to talk about the younger lot in their 20s or even younger, they do not carry physical money.
Yeah.
So of course their data is out there and they're far more comfortable as long as nothing happens.
Yeah, and that's where we've got our fingers crossed constantly as women. Okay, let's just go to Dr. Seema to understand. Varja, just stay with us for a second. Dr. Seema, can you tell our audiences, is it possible to break this data down by age? I know you have that data. Are we, still awaiting the data to understand, for example, if the women who said that they felt highly unsafe were largely older or younger? Do we have that kind of context here?
Yes, absolutely. It is absolutely possible to break that data down by age, and we are doing analysis. And you have rightly pointed out that the younger women are much more comfortable in their online interactions as compared to the older age groups. However, the concrete research findings, when they will be shared, that I think that will be a better context to put it with validity. So I would not give a fleeting comment on this, but yes, it is possible to break it down.
Okay, so let's just ask you where it says that this, because there was this very, very interesting question you asked in multiple areas, the last 2 years question. And this question of, in the last 2 years, have you seen improvement? And when it came to a lot of public areas, again on Friday, we found the data said yes. When it came to neighborhoods, when it came to workplaces, a lot of women did feel that yes, there had been an improvement. But here, only 32% are saying that, and we're showing you that data over there. 32% are saying positive change has taken place. 38% are, as you can say moderately. And when it comes to a little, you have a big chunk there. 30% are saying that basically nothing has happened. Again, Dr. Seema, horrific numbers in this section. Again and again, we're drawing that comparison. Just tell our audiences, Dr. Seema, what you thought about that point. The fact that people don't feel like much change is happening here.
Absolutely. Here, I would actually say that this is much more concerning as compared to the other online data we have seen so far. That the numbers are just they are just similar to each other, 33, 37, 36, like that. So here, what we have seen that, the confidence is not there because they have not really seen it happening on the ground. Maybe there is a poor communication about what efforts are being made, and therefore they have not seen the improvement on the ground.
Yeah.
Or there's a huge possibility that there's a very little public awareness about even if they are making some advancement, they are not communicating it. So there is no visibility of the initiatives which are being taken, and that is why,
if there are
yeah,
initiatives.
if there are initiatives, absolutely, and that is why we can see that it seems rather stagnant or getting worsened
Yeah, it's
as far as the
actually,
perceptions are concerned.
you're right. It's a double-pronged problem. The first question is,
Yeah,
are actions being done by security agencies? And the second is, if they are we being told about them? So let's just go very
absolutely.
quickly. Closing words, Varija, we want to come to you to ask you this. Because you are someone, as we were saying earlier, who runs, as you've said, two different outlets online, so you take care of the back end, you're constantly dealing with people's data, but you're also a modern woman in India, and so you're surrounded by a lot of other women, you yourself, who are using data and digital spaces constantly. Varaja, if we could ask you, for the last few decades, ever since the internet became a thing, it's always felt like you can use online, but when it comes to complaining about problems, going to a police officer may or may not be effective. When you face online harassment, when you're being trolled, it's only when it's taking place on a big scale to a celebrity that one feels like, okay, police authorities you can go and complain to. But can the average Indian woman? She can. But do we know Indian women who have? Maybe not. So, Varaja, could I ask you there, what do you think needs to be done? Because it's not as if police forces aren't there to act on this issue. But maybe it is that we don't go to them. How do you see this?
So we are really looking at a very strong digital India coming in next few years, and that's how our Prime Minister has projected, or he has plans in place. But parallelly, a lot of work is happening on the ground. There's a lot of cyber education that is happening at the school level. There are guest lectures by cyber experts. Both my children, they're very young, and at a very young age of even before their teens, they are exposed to how the hacking happens and how they should be careful about sharing the data, all of that. So even before we as parents sort of educate them, I think the schools have taken up in a very big way, which I think is very progressive. But at the same time, we are seeing rampant episodes, and I think now it's become even more prevalent, where your Facebook account is hacked, where your WhatsApp account is hacked. Every week I get some friend or the other saying that my WhatsApp is hacked, please don't transfer the money. So it's become very, very prevalent. I think we have to figure that out as authorities or at the back end, that how do we curtail that. But at the same time, I've had personal episodes, and I always go as no celebrity to cybercrime. There have been cases of harassment. There have been cases of deepfake, where I have witnessed my images being used. But and these episodes have happened a decade ago. So I have been exposed to how cybercrime was dealing it then to vis-a-vis, let's say 2 years ago, and a lot has changed. So they know that they're dealing with something serious. Even if they can't handle it, they do have experts that they do outsource, the technical aspects of technology, and they manage it anyhow. They know this is serious stuff, and they can't just let go. So I am seeing that change, and I hope this becomes even more robust in the coming years, because there's no running away from the digital platforms in any way in future times to come.
Varaja, we appreciate you even sharing, the fact that you've actually dealt with this, and you dealt with it 10 years ago. That comparison is an important one. The fact that today you are saying, as on first-hand experience, that things have changed.
And no, I did not go to the cybercrime, and I usually do not go to the authorities with my disclosure of my personality. I just go as a regular citizen.
Yeah.
No, they did take it seriously. 10 years ago, they did take it seriously, but I don't think they were equipped enough to handle it. But now the interstate cybercrime communication is far more robust than what it was 10 years ago.
All right, so positive steps, but the numbers do show still that, that change needs to be felt by women across the country. Varaja, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Dr. Seema, as usual, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for highlighting all of the data for our audiences. Okay, we're going to be heading